Hey guys, I'm Tim with BleepinJeep. Today I'm down here at Rock and Road Performance, and Travis Riley and Greg Sahr from Rock and Road took a few minutes to give us a tour of their car, and today's video will be brought to you by WD-40.
Well, let's give everybody a walk around of the car. A lot of people haven't seen this before.
It's a 4504 car. It's got the rough stuff housing in the front, 9-inch with the Dana 60 outers, Ford, full 4-link. Front and rear. Totally Tig Welded Chassis, Rock and Road Performance Custom. Everything you see is basically handmade, and we put a lot of thought into everything. Radiator's been custom, fan shroud, chassis, rock sliders, steering system, everything is, I mean, the fuel cell holder, all of it has been well thought out. It's got the 502 big block Chevy in it. It's got the 4L80 transmission. It's full manual valve body from GR's transmission. MP205 transfer case from Behemoth Drivetrain. It's their Colossus. It's the new one. We're excited to run the new one. Haven't really had too much time to do that. The old one rocked. I loved it.
Very cool.
A lot.
So one thing about the car that people will immediately notice is that all the steel is raw on it, and why is that?
Well, we want to keep it raw so we can see all the, if there's any fractures or any impurities in the steel that are popping up.
And that's also a requirement by Ultra 4?
I never read that, but I've heard that you're not supposed to paint a brand new chassis until it's been seasoned.
Yeah.
To see if there's any kind of fatigue or cracks or poor workmanship.
So it may not necessarily be a rule so much as it is just a good practice, so you can keep an eye on everything.
Especially on a brand new car. You make small changes and tweaks. You find out there's something rubbed here or something needs to be moved there. Well, if you have a fully painted chassis, you'll be grinding all that paint off. Especially a lot of guys, they'll get these things powder coated. Powder coat sucks to grind off, clean, and then touch up later. Right. It just looks like crap. But if you got a couple of years in it, and you know everything's going to stay where it is, then yeah, go ahead and paint it, and it looks nicer. I mean, some people, I kind of like the raw look.
Sure, that looks great.
A lot of Scotch Brighting and WD-40.
Right, so that's how you guys keep it from rusting?
Yeah, we scrub it down and we spray WD-40 on it. It keeps it as pretty as you can see. It works out really well for us. The fuel cell is a Jazz cell. It's 32 gallons, and we have wiffle balls in it, so it's about 30 gallons now.
They're requiring some sort of baffling system in there, and the foam, it quit pretty early.
And that was the foam that it came with?
Yes, that is the foam that it came with.
And
that
so
was frustrating.
In Ridgecrest, we had a really rough time with that. About every 7 miles, we would stop and have to clean out the pre-filter and everything like that. It was just miserable. We still finished the race. It was just a really rough time. Slow, very slow.
Dang. And what size tires are you guys running on this?
We've got the 37-inch Nittle Trail Grapplers.
Right.
And they're awesome tires. I just absolutely love them.
It's the first set I've ever used. I've seen other people with them, but all the abuse that we've put these things through, and how as much as they've held up and...
Right, you guys actually split a wheel, two wheels in half with these tires.
2 wheels. I was doing some testing and tuning out in the desert at Moon Rocks, and I was flying down the trail, and the only bush in the desert I hit, and right behind the bush it was about a 2-foot rock, and it was, I hit it, blew out 2 wheels
around the inside section,
and these are still the same tires.
Wow, that's pretty
it blew the wheels completely in half, so it was pretty gnarly.
Jeez, what kind of power do you think this thing has right now?
It's got decent power. I mean, the stock engine in its stock form produced 400 foot-pounds of torque, so we're way over that. We've got a well-modified engine. Right,
and you were telling me that you're interested in installing turbos in the future?
Yeah, some power adders.
Stroking a turbo?
We're thinking about stroking it, bring it up a little bit to a 540. But maybe we'll just slap a single or some twins on it, and we'll see if we can make a little bit more power. We don't really need it, and that is why we went with this engine. Is A lot of people have lower gears. We have higher gears because we have such low end torque. We don't need it. We hardly ever use low range. It is awesome.
They're 37-inch tires, so you're not running 40s or 42s.
Yeah.
Right.
Allowed to.
And 37 is a class requirement for this class.
Correct, yeah.
They have to be DOT. They can't be race tires or any of that stuff. They have to be
DOT approved.
readily available to the public, street tires.
So Greg sponsored the chassis, which means what?
I designed and built the whole thing. So I did all the labor portion of it for this particular vehicle.
Right, and like we pointed out earlier in the video, this is a fully TIG welded chassis. And so how much time roughly do you think that entailed?
I got at least 100 hours of TIG welding in here. It took a lot of time.
So it's 100 hours including tube bending and notching and welding, or 100 hours?
No, I think probably close to 100 hours in welding, just because,
welding.
Yeah, each individual tab that I had to add on there, it takes, a couple minutes here and there, and then it all adds up. There's a lot of small intricate pieces, like all the transmission mount. Everything's layered, everything's got multiple pieces to it. There's a lot of little detail, small nooks and crannies and stuff that just take a lot of time.
If I recognize it, this is the very first piece of the race car. I remember when that was made here on the table. And then out here on the end of the chassis, you have some smaller tubes. You want to explain what those are for?
The entire chassis is 2-inch 120 wall DOM, except for some of the main belly rails that take the most punishment. They are a thicker 188 wall. These cars take so much abuse, and hitting the rocker panels is inevitable. It's going to happen. So this tube would be much harder to replace if it was damaged, because it's tied into a much larger portion of the vehicle. So we added a set of smaller 1.5-inch 120 wall DOM rock sliders. So these are meant, I didn't put them on very strong. It's just a little piece of, I think these are 3/16 tabs, and they're kind of spaced out, and it's pushed away from the body, and it's below, and this is meant to crush and get mangled up instead of the body. So these are sacrificial sliders. After a race or two, if they're getting real beat up, we'll just come in here and cut all the tabs off and stick another set on. And hopefully that'll prolong the life of the standard rocker panels.
Gotcha. If you guys are thinking that battery looks awfully vulnerable there, you're right. But this car has a body that's not on it. It's basically sheet metal skins that cover the whole car. So when it's actually racing, a lot of this is sealed up and the car looks completely different. But all that's pulled off right now for working on it.
Missing its face.
Yeah. You guys are running a Warn Xeon something or other here?
Yes, so we have a Warn Xeon 10S Platinum.
And this is the wireless one, right?
Yeah, it's all wireless,
So
which is weird to get used to, but is kind of convenient.
Sure, for a race application.
Yeah, especially because as a spotter and co-driver, if we ended up in a situation, which we haven't yet, where we did need to use the winch, I can get out, I can unlock the clutch just with the remote, grab the cable, tie it up to wherever we're going to be winching from, and you can re-lock the clutch just with a touch of a button.
Yeah.
On the same wireless remote, it has battery voltage, it has motor temperature, and some other information on there, which is really nice. So you're not really overheating this thing.
That's pretty cool. What's the story with the gas pedal?
We were running out of time. I think it's some junkyard Ford gas pedal that was laying around.
Yeah, because your brake pedal setup here looks far superior.
Yeah, we were. That was kind of. It was a last push last year trying to get this thing ready for hammers.
Temporary, right?
Yeah, it was going to be temporary, and it just worked so good. It looks like crap, but it has never failed us.
Yeah, well, that's what counts.
Big radiator. What did you say this was? A three-pass radiator?
Yeah, it was a single-pass radiator, but we've been fighting cooling issues. These big giant motors don't like running that high RPM and under this much abuse that long. So we end up having to get a bigger water pump that should be able to push enough water through that radiator. Then we want to slow it down in the radiator itself. So we cut some slats in the tanks of the radiator and added some plates That way the coolant is forced to cross the radiator multiple times instead of just going across one time.
And you actually have the coolant running through the chassis of the car?
Yeah, we used our required frame rails of the vehicle that run front to back, and actually plumbed coolant right into them. So it comes out of the thermostat housing, goes around the back of the motor, down into the frame rail, down the frame rail, back up, and into the top of the radiator.
Is that something you guys do, or do a lot of different racers do that?
I think there's a fair amount of people doing that. I think it depends on chassis design. If you have a tube that runs front to back and is substantial, I mean.
So how many gallons of coolant does this thing hold?
I think when we first filled it up, I don't think we've drained it completely since then, but it took almost 13 gallons to fill this thing up.
Wow.
This transmission, the frame rails, and the motor and everything.
Sure.
Is quite a bit.
You guys running ADS suspension on here?
Yes, so we have I absolutely love these shocks. This brand, the whole company in general, they're very good to us. They make an amazing product. I run a 2 1/8 inch coil carrier, and then when it's packed up, it's got some pack racing springs on there for us. And then we have a 2 1/2 inch 4-tube 14 inch travel bypass shock. Then we're running the 2 1/8 inch 3 inch travel bump stops.
So you guys raced in the 2018 year quite a bit. What were some of the worst breaks that you had?
First race, we broke 3 front stub shafts.
Oh,
and 3
that's
spindles.
right. Our first race, we blew out the front end 3 times.
The Dana 60/30 spline stuff does not last long at all.
It was our beginning race. It was our first. We didn't know very much, and if you guys don't know that the stuff's very expensive, so our budget was very, very tight. So we went with the cheap stuff, and you know what? It's not worth going with the cheap stuff. It ended up costing more than to go with the expensive stuff just once.
Ridgecrest was a fuel issue.
Ridgecrest was a fuel issue.
We were fighting overheating throughout the season.
Yeah, throughout the season. We modified our radiator, went to bigger fans, went to a high amperage and high output alternator. We fixed that issue. We are also, during the Stampede, we also had a backyard modified transmission at the time. We were flipping switches to get it to shift.
Still has automatic valve body.
Yeah, and I rigged up a few things to make it work, and you know what, it did work for what we had. Grenaded a couple of third members. Yeah, ring and pinions. Other than that, no.
Two rears and a front.
2 rears and two fronts.
2 fronts.
Yeah. During nationals, we changed a ring and pinion out in the pits.
Between it was between qualifying and the first heat.
So that was fun.
So with only a few days left until KOH 2019, do you think this is the most prepared your car and you guys have been?
Yes.
Way less stressful than last year.
Yeah, well last year you weren't even done welding the chassis by now.
Yeah, I think it went from the lift to the trailer and then the hammers. We drove it once in the parking lot.
We drove it onto, basically around the building onto the trailer, and that was the first time that we got to drive it. This year we've had a lot of fun with it. We've been able to drive it a lot, find out a lot of the weak points, which aren't a whole lot. I'm pretty impressed.
These old bot parts like axle shafts and stuff.
Exactly. It's not our design.
Mechanically, it's been pretty sound.
Everything's going great. We've got a really big background. We all grew up, wheeling in some of the hardest trails here. So that's what we come from, and I believe we incorporated that into this car very well.
Very nice. Well, it's a beautiful car. What day is the race? Your race at KOH this year?
Wednesday the 6th.
Yes.
Wednesday, February 6th, and that's the EMC race?
Yep, the Everyman Challenge.
All right, very cool. All right, well, thanks for taking the time to show everyone the car. I'm sure people will really like it. And they'll see you on TV or at KOH.
All right.